Yo, hello and welcome everybody to MTA episode 43, I think, for the 10th of December in 2018. This is Mosen here and coming at you with the topics gold DKP raids and lifestealing items. Well, draining items, you know, lifestealing, the usual, the vampiric stuff. And so as we have the correct item here already on the screen, we're gonna start with that too. So Salad and me, we have been theory crafting a little bit on the Discord and on stream yesterday, as usual, and like we were looking for crazy items and cool, interesting stuff. And he linked me this Demon Forge breastplate, and as you might know, I'm playing Prot Paladin at the moment to make a guide and you know, try it out a little bit. And so yeah, he linked me this item here, and it's called Demon Forge breastplate. I had trouble finding the correct lifestealing value here, so I had to go to Wowpedia actually to get the correct amount that he linked yesterday. The actual amount, base amount. And now the interesting thing is this. He linked this and I first thought, well, okay, 3% to steal 178 life from the target. Doesn't sound all that much at the beginning, but if you take into consideration that as a Prot Paladin you're AoE tanking a lot of stuff, you can always switch out gear if you know, okay, now there's a big AoE pull coming. I'm gonna equip this item, this particular item, and a 3% chance is actually not that low to do this. And here's the interesting thing. Now, what we need to test still is if this puts a debuff on the target, like the Skullforge Reaver. You know, when it's drained over 4 seconds. Looks to be a dot on the target, which would make it not so good for raiding, but for 5-man dungeons probably very interesting. It has 12 stamina and quite a bit of armor, not the best, but okay. And now the thing is about these lifestealing items, there's a couple of those in game that these things usually scale 100% with spell damage and healing. So this is actually a very interesting one, especially if you're probably even more for a Holy Paladin that wants to solo farm some stuff, you know what I mean? Because they usually have a lot of ad heal stacked, more so than Prot Paladins actually have spell power. They have a little bit of spell power or spell damage, but usually, you know, of course, healing Paladins with, let's say, complete tier 1, you have this increased Judgment of Light triggering. And that in combination with the group heal chance, or the chance of healing your group with an auto attack, in combination with this lifestealing stuff, scaling completely with ad heal, is a very interesting thing. So this is the first item. It has a 3% chance, so you want to pull as much or a lot of mobs, right? And then of course the 3% chance counts for every of those mobs. If you have 10 mobs, you technically have a 30% chance. And as I said, I read in the comments below, I read if there's any, you know, evidence that this used to really scale with healing and spell damage, and turns out it did. You know, coming from I think 2007. That is pretty accurate, I would say. Not too accurate, but somewhat accurate. I believe it was from summer of 2007. And he said, yeah, this is confirmed to be scaling with plus heal and spell damage 100%. So that is very interesting because they actually tested this, and it turned out that this one scaled or stole, I don't know, 300 life. You didn't have very much of the spell damage or healing, but it stole 300 life from the attacker. And this can of course go way more up. So if you have a lot of spell damage, or you have, let's say, 100 spell damage on your gear, which is not too crazy as a Prot Paladin, for example. As a healing Paladin, of course, you have way more, and this is awesome for, you know, solo dungeoning, or you know, you can just go solo into a dungeon and farm a lot of gold. I will test this out for sure. Myself, so because I want to know these kind of things. But even as a Prot Paladin, you know, you probably have like 100 spell damage or something. So this lifesteal per tick or per proc would steal almost 300 life already. That's pretty sick. And then we got into that a little bit. There's more items, but they had like very low chances to proc. So here's another one that probably everybody knows, right? And this one also seems to scale with spell damage and plus heal completely, and it has the same 3%, which is pretty decent. A very much lower base amount of leech, but if this also scales, if you have 100, you have another chance to steal 135 life from the target. There were a couple of others, and I'm sure you guys have found a couple of other ones there, but usually I was looking at plate gear that actually isn't too gimped, because there was one more, I believe it was a belt or something like that, and it was mail, and so the armor value was very low, and the strength, there was strength on it, and so there weren't very many defensive stats except for that, which is also a thing that I would note on a Skull Flame shield. It always looks very good on paper, and this is certainly a thing that in combination all these procs can work very well together if you have add heal and plus damage, and this is very much a thing that especially Holy Paladins can use, as well as Prot Paladins, I think, for certain AoE situations and AoE tanking. This is very, very interesting. The thing is though, aside from this, it always depends what you're sacrificing. If you're sacrificing too much defense rating and all that, armor and block rating, if you compare this shield, for example, with Dilbora Disc from MC, it's just not on the level, except for, maybe for special things that you want to do. So keep this in mind. This is not like the best shield. It's just a shield, very situational build that we thought of. But the next item will be the Skullforge Reaver, known to everybody. Also, keep in mind that these things usually put dots on the target, which then drains or leeches. So in a raid situation, that always gets knocked off, so you can't really do that. Unless you're AoE tanking, of course. But then you'd probably have to choose, because then you have more targets to choose from, and not all of the debuff slots on all of the targets are usually taken. Except it might still get knocked off from deep wounds and smaller things, because it has a very low priority. So maybe this is more of a 5-man dungeon thing, but it's interesting nonetheless. You can fantasize all you like, because I know for sure that this sword does scale with plus heal and plus damage, and so it's an actual drain effect. So we're gonna go and try all of these 3 things in combination out and check if there's more. If you have more items that also leech, please put it in the comments below, because I need to know, because I want to run a complete leech setup with spell power enchanted on the weapon and all that kind of stuff. And of course we're gonna go with this, either a spell power enchant, so that the leech of each item is higher, or a life stealing enchant, but probably a spell power enchant, because it's just gonna be better anyway. So let me know if you have any more leech items, and put them in the comments below, and we will try these out, especially this breastplate here. This is a pretty damn high base value of leech. That being covered, let's talk about gold DKP. This is actually a topic I wanted to talk about for months now, but I always forgot, believe it or not. And I thought it was an interesting thing that really doesn't get used all too much. I saw it a couple of times on different servers, and there was usually a couple of people doing it, but of course they did it in a different way. People that hosted it usually took gold from it. So here's how gold DKP is supposed to work, right? And this is what makes it actually kind of interesting even for guilds, I might add. I was thinking that this might actually be very interesting for guilds. So the idea is that you have a raid, and you have geared people and not so geared people, as usual. And you run into that raid, and as soon as you have a boss down and an item drops, these items are then auctioned off into the raid for gold. And the highest bidder wins the item, and pays the gold to a person that acts like a vault, if you want, or a holder of the gold. It's noted down. Everybody can, keep write it down what has been bid on the item, and so forth. Like more items drop, you auction them off, you gather the gold, and you write that down, of course. And at the end of the run, right, you are done with the raid. You auctioned off all the items, and then you have a certain amount of gold in your bag that that you made, basically, from auctioning off all the items. This whole amount is then distributed amongst the whole raid. And so the idea behind that is, the more people actually spend for items, the more gold everybody is going to get. Because the first thing would say, well, then the richest people could just go and, get all the loot, obviously, and, just buy all the loot, and we are not getting anything. And the counter argument is, well, if they spend so much gold, right, and you bid them up, and they are willing to spend so much gold and just buy it off you, and they're freaking rich, then it's gonna go into the pot, into the whole bag of gold, and everybody's gonna profit from it in the end. So it's actually good if somebody pays a lot of money or has a lot of money to spend for items, because after that everybody's gonna get something. Now the downside, of course, is that people started to do this and say host gets 10%. Or, it's a gold DKP run and the host keeps all the gold. And of course this is basically a buy run then, and the purpose is lost, really. But I mean, if he finds people that are willing to do that, fine, you can't really blame him then if people are stupid enough to go and just pay gold and he just takes it. Sure. I mean, Salad had the idea we should do this for the guild, and the gold should be distributed amongst all of the officers. I like the idea, but I'm very sure that not everyone would agree with this. So we can't really do that. So yeah, the idea is pretty cool. We are thinking about adapting this system for our social and alt runs. It's basically a second raid, and what that would do. Now, in theory, we're not completely through with this decision yet. Main raid will, of course, completely stay loot council and everything, and we're not going to touch that working system. But for our second raid, where a lot of alts go or socials go, we're thinking about making that system with a little tweak to it. Because now you would think, well, this is a stupid system. If you are like a social in a guild, and there's alts in it, and people just buy just buy the gear in the guild, shouldn't the guild be, somewhat helping each other out? Now that's true, but we're talking, just remember that we're talking about a second raid / alt raid here, and the main raid is completely loot council in a completely different system. But we're thinking about making that to the social and alt raid, because it would actually encourage. Let's say a main raider, right, he missed the main raid, he had something to do in real life, and he, comes online the next day when, the alt raid or social raid, second raid, happens to be. And he would maybe he would say, well, I don't really feel like running with alts or, running with those socials because meh. But if he has a chance A, to get items, right, B, he can, if he doesn't really need anything at all, right, and this is the biggest incentive that I haven't even talked about yet. If he doesn't need anything, geared people have the opportunity to gain gold from that run. And this is also the idea behind the gold DKP pugs, because it gives geared people an incentive to go, because if they're not getting anything out, they have a little bit of fun, and in the worst case, they get a lot of gold for it. And it's an incentive to carry others through, basically, with your gear. And so back to the example, like if a raider comes on from the main squad, he missed the raid in the main squad, but he has an incentive to go and help the socials out with his fat gear. And even if he doesn't need any item, he can still say, hey, I'm gonna help these guys out, I'm gonna do something for the guild, and in the worst case, I'm getting gold to pay for my consumables for the main raid. And it's a win-win situation. Very crap geared people, they can just go into the raid, right, and items that nobody wants anymore are going to go out for very, very few amounts of gold. You can set the threshold of starting very, very low, let's say 10 gold or something, or 5 gold even, whatever you like, or 0. You know, you can say, hey, you know, if nobody really wants this, why should he actually pay something for it? But you could have like a baseline thing, like a 5 gold thing. So people that are very shit geared or very fresh alts could go in and they could just grab the gear that's very cheap, that nobody wants anymore. They wouldn't be taxed too much. And you know, people that have a lot of gear already, that carry the others through, would have the opportunity to gain gold at the end, even if they're not getting any items. And of course, you know, you can get more items for the main raiders, but keep in mind that the main raiders are in the main raid, so you're not, the main raid doesn't suffer from this. But it's actually also an incentive to make an alt maybe, because you're saved with your main raider, but you know, if you have an alt, you can participate in these other runs. And if you like raiding more than farming, for example, you can make an alt that is useful to the other raid. And in the worst case scenario, you can just say, you know, gear doesn't very much matter for me in the alt, with this alt in the alt raid, in the social raid, in the second raid, whatever you want to call it. And I'm just running to gain gold for my main, because I hate farming. Another good option. Or I am PvPing with this alt, and you know what, I don't really want any of this gear because I'm just ranking, but I do want the Bone Reaver's Edge, right? I want that Bone Reaver's Edge, and I want it very much, and I don't want any other gear, so I'm gonna offer you, like, let's say, well, I really want it bad, so here's 1k. The guild profits from it, everybody profits from it, and this guy's happy that he just got the exact item that he wanted for ranking with his alt, right? There's a lot of, I think there's a lot of potential. What we would have to do, though, it still needs a little bit of tweaking. There's obviously a couple of problems. You know, if you find any problems, put them down in the comments below, because that system probably needs tweaking, even if it's for a second raid in a guild. But yeah, those are my thoughts on the gold DKP. I think it's certainly a system that we can work with if it's done right and it doesn't piss too many people off. People really need to understand, right? You know, the first thing you would say is like a gold DKP sounds very you know, cashing in, but as long as everything is distributed and there's no like artificial tax to well, I'm, you know, this guy's the officer and he's hosting it and he gets the 10%, then I think this would actually make sense. So yeah, that's the you know, things for today. I'm definitely going to test the spell damage and spell leech stuff, and I'm gonna have a couple more talks with the officers about the second rate gold TKP, in combination with some you know, guild rules, of course, so it's more fair for newcomers and everything. And we'll see how if we can make it work. If not, then not, right? But I think it's a thing that's that you can actually, it's worth thinking about. Also, big thank you to everybody that has followed and subbed on the Twitch. Very much appreciated, and donated and all that good stuff, man. It's, yeah, I'm grateful for all of the small stuff as well, so thank you very much for that. And yeah, I would say, if you haven't already, feel free or consider subbing and turning on the notifications so you can see when there's a new video out on this channel. I also have a German channel. This is the ad section of the video. So if you like German content more, just type in Mosendell. And if you don't have anything better to do, you know, you can also sometimes surf over to the Twitch. And if you have done that already, I want to thank my YouTube subs. There's a bunch of subs coming in lately, and you know, also on the Twitch, it's awesome. It's very fun to stream. I want to thank you for that. I want to put out a clear thank you for subbing and following and all that kind of stuff. I think sometimes that comes a little bit too short. Because sometimes you just forget, right? You want to get the video out, and I wanted to take the time and thank every sub for the support I've been getting, and it's very much appreciated. So if you really want to help out, you can push the bell on the YouTubes, and then you will not miss any new videos. I thank you very much for your time, and I hope this was interesting, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you very much. Bye bye.